I read 12 books in the month of June, so let's talk about all of them. In no particular order, let's start with Check-in Mate by Hazelwood. I ended up giving this book about a 3, an honorary 3 stars, but it was more like a 2.5 star read for me. And essentially the plot is about these 2 really good chess players, and it's like a rivals to lovers YA romance. However, I found that the romance, it wasn't that strong in my opinion. Like, there wasn't enough moments of them being rivals, and then there wasn't enough of those kind of like smaller, quieter moments with them together to really establish a relationship. And then in terms of the YA aspect, it kind of felt like the writing was a lot more diluted than what I've seen from Hazelwood before. And there was way too much kind of modern day references, so it really is going to age this book to the point where in like 20 years, people aren't going to want to pick it up. It's not going to be timeless. And so that kind of like pulled down a lot of the rating for me. But it was still like a cute, fluffy chess romance. And that's a bit unique because I've never really read a chess romance before. And that's kind of what made this one stand out to me. So it was kind of interesting because it was a different kind of setting than I was used to. But I would say it's not Hazelwood's like strongest book, but it was entertaining enough. Next up, we have Where Sleeping Girls Lie by Faridah Àbíké-Íyímídé. And this book was really, really interesting to me, and it was dark academia, murder mystery, kind of corruption in the school, with a bunch of very like complex themes that were kind of touched on in a very tasteful way. This one was interesting because it follows our main character, Sadeh, and she was homeschooled her entire life, and then she ends up going to this like prestigious boarding school, and her roommate just goes missing. She's only been there for 24 hours and boom, roommate's gone, and people are like, did Sadeh have something to do with this? And then Sadeh kind of gets involved in the students investigating, trying to figure out like what happened. And then there's like a lot of corruption within the school. It's interesting because it kind of dives deep into like the school is kind of positioned as this super great prestigious place where all these rich people go, but inside it's very corrupt and the bones are bad and like all of this. And then there's also a murder that happens later as well. So this book was definitely a really fun read if you like dark academia, if you like kind of like that high school setting that touches on very important themes and has really great representation in it. This book, I definitely would recommend it. I gave it 4 stars. It was pretty good. The only thing I would say about it is that it was a little bit longer than I think that it could have been. I think that it felt a little bit drawn out at some times, but overall it was still a really good read. So this was good. Definitely check out the trigger warnings though before you pick up this book, just in case. But yeah, this was definitely a good one. Next up, we have Emily Henry's People We Meet on Vacation. And I wanted to like this one so much, but I just couldn't. And I gave it 3 stars in my video, but I think I would, the more I think about it, it's probably more like a 2-star book. And that's because it didn't feel like Emily Henry. That was one thing, but it was, the writing wasn't as strong. I didn't care about any of the characters. The setting was The only thing that I really actually liked about it was that it was a vacation setting, and I was looking for some kind of like vacation-y, summery kind of vibe to match like what's happening outside there. But yeah, I don't know, this one, it just didn't hit for me. It wasn't, in my opinion, the best type of friends to lovers. I'm not even the biggest fan of friends to lovers, but I just found the main character really, really annoying. However, I can definitely see the appeal in it. So like if you do like friends to lovers, if maybe you relate with these characters a little bit more than I did, you may like it. Just for me, it just didn't hit for me. But Emily Henry's other books seemed to be pretty good for me, so I don't know, this one just wasn't it for me, I guess. Beach Read by Emily Henry, however, this book made me cry. This book is a 5-star read. I absolutely adored every single thing about it. Not only is it about like writer, author people, which is very relatable for me, it also is just so much more complex and more deep and more emotional than you would think, because on the cover you think it's going to be this cute little beachy vibe, like kind of like this one, but this one was way more. It hit so good. It was so well written as well. All of the characters were so realistic. The scenarios made sense, and it was just like, it was brilliant. This is a brilliant, brilliant book, and I love it. I love this book so much. I would read this again, and I don't reread books, so yeah, that's how much I love this book. And like I mentioned, it made me cry, and I'm not a book crier. I haven't cried at a book in like probably like over a year and a half at this point, but this was so good. So if you're expecting it to be like a fun summer beach read, that's not the case at all. So I was a bit disappointed at first because I thought that's what it was gonna be, but then it became this like well-constructed, realistic, raw human experience. So yeah, this one was really good. Next up, I read the first 3 books in Brenda K. Davies' Shadow Realms series. This is a series of 11 books, so I've read the first 3 so far, and I really enjoy this series. Not only is it self-published, it also is just so much fun. It's a romantasy series, and it has a bunch of different kind of like fantasy creatures that you always read about, and they're all kind of in one setting. So you get dragons, you get vampires, you get witches, you get fae, you get, at some point, zombies are mentioned as well. So there's just like a lot of cool stuff in there, and it's really fast paced. It's really interesting. It has a lot of really cool like twists and turns that honestly like shock me. The end of each of these books just like throws me in for a loop, and I'm always like, oh, what? How is that possible? And it's so much fun. I gave the first book 4 stars, and the next, like the second and the third book, I gave 4.5 stars. Because of how much I love it. It's so fun. I would say though, the romance aspect I think was a bit rushed in the first book, but I think everything else is honestly really, really well done. I think that the pacing is really cool. A lot of the characters are unique, and they all do develop through time. And so the setting itself actually happens right after a war, which is like unique to me because I'm like, wow, usually it's like during a war or right before a war. But no, this is the aftermath of a war, and like a corrupt man who sits on this throne that literally corrupts his brain and ruins, like takes away every ounce of humanity that he had. And it's so well done. I definitely recommend it. It's so underrated. I love it so much. Next up, we have Chestnut Springs #1, which is Flawless by Elsie Silver. And this one really surprised me because I don't like country romances. It's just not really my vibe for whatever reason, but I really, really like this one. I gave it 4 stars. I have the second book now that I plan on reading. Now it's July. And so yeah, this book was so much fun. Our main characters are Rhett and Summer, and Rhett is a professional bull rider, and he gets himself into a bit of trouble where it's kind of ruining his reputation. He's losing sponsors and stuff. And so his kind of like manager guy sends his daughter, Summer, to basically like make sure he doesn't mess up. She's like the PR person in this. And throughout that time, making sure he doesn't do stuff that he's not supposed to, like keep his image intact, they start to get to know each other. And this book gets spicy. I really like the spice in this book. It was really, really good. If you like spicy books, this one was really good for that. And the scenes were unique too. You know, it kind of went outside of the box, and interesting things happen. Let's just say that there was whipped cream involved in one of the scenes in this book. It's a real good one. Next up, we got Tress of the Emerald Sea by Sanderson. This book was fun. I gave it 4 stars, and I really enjoyed it because there's a lot of references and kind of like stuff woven into the story that I kind of recognized from Stormlight when I read it. And I've heard, based on like when I made the video about this, some people had commented that there's other references to other Brandon Sanderson books. So this is one I will have to reread again after I go through all of the Brandon Sanderson books, just to see all of the different references and kind of stuff. But what's really fun about it is it's told from the perspective of Hoyd, or Wit, as I know him best from Stormlight Archive. And he's a really funny character, and his kind of interpretations and the way he talks is so much fun. And so the story follows along our main character Tress, and she lives on this tiny little island, and she loves the little cups that kind of wash up on shore. And basically what's really interesting about the world, and what's really impressive about Brandon Sanderson's writing, is just how unique it is. So the setting, there's different types of spores, and so if you get a bit of water, some of the spores, they grow into these like big trees or like these big crystal things. And so it's pretty dangerous because like if you sneeze and there's like a spore, it could like explode in your face, or if you inhale them, like you die because a tree grows out of you. Like, it's pretty dangerous. The way that the story kind of follows is our main character ends up leaving the island because the man that she loves is basically was shipped off to try to marry other people because his family wanted it, and he kind of annoyed all of those potential suitors. And so this kind of like sorceress lady takes him for ransom, but his family doesn't want him back, and so Tress kind of goes out on this adventure, someone who's never ever done anything like this, to go and save the man that she loves. And a lot of things happen. It's very kind of piratey and really cool and fun, and just the way that everything kind of ties together was really, really great. I really thought that it was such a unique, cool world, and it was also really cool that it was told from Whit's perspective. And when I was reading the kind of like the end note of it, apparently it was because Brandon Sanderson, well, at first he wrote this for his wife, and then she liked it and convinced him to like get it published. And then the reason that is that he wants to kind of work on writing in Whit's voice, because he wants to do like a Whit backstory kind of thing. And I'm like, ooh, yes, thank you. I'm so excited for that. So it was cool that this book was just kind of like him playing around with a character, getting to understand the voice and like all of that. So that was really cool. Next up, we got Peter Swanson's A Talent for Murder, which is apparently the third book in the series, but they all kind of work as standalones in a way, but it would have been better actually if I read the first two, but I didn't know that it wasn't a standalone. But anyways, I enjoyed it nonetheless. This was a 4-star read for me. It was really, really short, and it was well paced, and it's basically this mystery about this librarian, and she's starting to suspect that her husband might be a serial killer. And so she kind of gets in contact with an old friend, and together these two characters are kind of investigating, figuring out like, is the husband a serial killer or is there something else kind of going on? And it was really fun. It gave Stephen King's Holly kind of vibes, especially with the other character, Lily. The book did surprise me, definitely. I think it was like the end of the first part, and I was like, wait, what? And it was one of those unique books that had two different kinds of like POVs. So it had third person and it had first person. And the way it was done was really, really clever, and I really enjoyed that. The mystery itself was pretty cool as well. Definitely caught me like by surprise in different areas, and it also really got you into the head of the villain and really understand them and their kind of backstory, why they are the way they are, and just how their thought process is. So the entire thing was really, really interesting. I would say that it was a bit gory at times for me, which that doesn't really sit right, so that's why I don't read too many murder mysteries, but it was still good nonetheless, and it was really short, but it didn't feel like it felt like every single page had a purpose, and I thought that was really great. Next up, we have Abby Jimenez's Just for the Summer, and this book was fun. I gave it either a 4 or 4.5. I think I definitely would give it a 4.5 now because I think about it all the time, and it was a really fun story because it followed along these two characters, and they both think that they're cursed when it comes to love. Every single person they date and then they break up with ends up finding their soulmate immediately after. And so they kind of create this like, it's kind of like a joke for them. They don't take it too seriously, but I mean, it's the summertime and they're both like attractive people who are kind of interested in meeting people. And so they decide to fake date, which is my favorite thing ever. I love fake dating. I wonder if people in real life actually do that though. But they fake date and they're like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. And then after that, we'll break up with each other and then we will find our soulmates immediately after. Easy, done, let's do it. This book was way more emotional and complex, very similar to like how I felt with Beytral, where I thought I was going into just this cute little fun thing, but then it became way more than that. And there was a lot of like baggage and trauma that these characters had, and it was so much fun. The only thing I would say is that the first like maybe 100 pages or so, the writing wasn't as strong. It was a bit clunky, but then it was just like super seamless for the rest of the book, and I was hooked. There's some really, really good metaphors and just everything about this. I really like this. This was such a good summer read, an emotional, raw human experience that takes place in the summer. And there's a dog named Brad, so can't really go wrong with that, eh? And last but certainly not least, we have Gareth Brown's The Book of Doors. I gave this one either a 4 or a 4.5. I think 4.5 is what I gave it. And this was such a fun time travel story. And it was really creative too, because there's like these books. There's this Book of Doors, which is like our main one, and you can go through any door. So this could be any door anywhere in the world, or even any door in the past or the future. And the way that all of the timelines line up and the things that people do in the past and how it equals to like when the book starts and then how the book ends, and then you're like, wait a sec, whoa, like this was so well thought out. This was that type of time travel story. It was really cool. It had a lot of moments where I was like, oh, what the, like, I'm mind blown by this. However, it was very gory. That was really surprising to me. Very, very gory. And like I mentioned with A Talent for Murder, which wasn't even like to the degree of what this was like, I was shocked actually at how gory this was. And there's a really, really creepy, evil villain in this book. Well, there's two main villains, but the woman honestly is probably one of the most terrifying villains that I've ever encountered in my reading journey. She is just horrible, absolutely horrible. Not like horrible as in a villain, but like as a horrible, she's a horrible person to the point where she's terrifying. And it's the type of villain that people talk about, but you don't really see her that much. And that's one of my favorite things because it makes the villain, in my opinion, way scarier. But yeah, I absolutely devoured this book. If you like time travel stories, this was definitely like up there in terms of like really well thought out, really well constructed, had a lot of mystery, had a lot of magic and interesting characters, as well as just, oh, it was just so well done. I'm really impressed. Even it's been like a month since I read it now and I'm still impressed by it. So these were all 12 books that I read in the month of June, and it gives you good insight as well as to like the kind of books that I read. So if you enjoy reading these types of books, or at least watching people read these types of books, then definitely hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell notification. That way you get notified anytime a new video comes out. If you enjoy book hauls like this one, definitely hit the like button and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!